Ever have one of those days where a small act of pettiness snowballs into a full-blown life lesson, with a side of chaos? That's what happened to me. It started with a rude woman stealing my parking spot and flipping me off, and ended with a homeless man telling me how his wife got him addicted to cocaine and destroyed his life in the most diabolical way possible. Strap in, because this revenge story comes in two parts, one petty, one nuclear, and both are absolutely insane. Yesterday afternoon I had to make a quick run into DC to tie up some last-minute work stuff before heading off on vacation. I was already a bit behind schedule and more than a little hungry, so I decided to stop by this cozy little deli grocery store I like. It's one of those small, locally loved spots always packed during lunch hours and tucked in a weird little strip with a parking lot that seems like it was designed for golf carts instead of real vehicles. The spaces are tiny, the lanes are narrow, and I drive a full-size truck. Not ideal. As I pulled in, I scoped out the lot like a hawk. I spotted a glorious corner space, easy in, easy out. I started to back in, pulled out slightly to straighten up, and boom, a little Fiat zips in from behind and slides right into my spot. No hesitation, no consideration, just straight up parking piracy. I sat there in disbelief for a second. Was she serious? I looked through my rear window and saw her phone pressed to her ear, chatting away like nothing had happened. I gave a light honk, not aggressive, just a polite hey. I was backing in there. She looked up, saw me, and without missing a beat, flipped me off. Not a word. Just that universal one-finger salute. I didn't even get mad. Instead, I gave her a slow, disappointed shake of the head and a big old thumbs down. There's something way more powerful about showing disappointment than anger. It lingers. It sticks in your brain. Anger can be brushed off, but knowing someone thinks you're a clown that eats at people. I found another spot way tighter, way more annoying, but I made it work. I parked, got out, and wouldn't you know it, angry lady is now behind me, still on the phone, and now talking loudly about the redneck who almost wrecked her car. She was painting me as some kind of road-raging psycho, telling her invisible audience how she was victimized in a parking lot war. I bit my tongue, but my brain was working overtime. That's when a little spark of petty genius flickered to life. See, this deli has a number system. You take a little ticket and wait your turn to order. It's busy, but manageable. I walk up to the dispenser, pull my number, and in one smooth motion, yank out the next 10. Tuck them into my jacket. Angry lady is still on her phone, still ranting about the aggressive truck guy, and totally oblivious to what just happened. Now, this was a move of pure pet. Nothing harmful, nothing illegal, just a harmless, tiny jab to balance the scales of justice. I took my stack of stolen numbers and played Santa Claus with them. As I moved down the deli line, I handed them out to unsuspecting patrons. Here, take this one. You dropped this. Want a number? Boom. 10 people now magically ahead of me, an angry lady in line. By the time she waddled up and pulled a number, she had no clue she was in for an extra 20-minute wait. I watched from a distance as she fumed quietly, tapping her foot, sighing dramatically, and checking her watch every 30 seconds. My number was right before hers, which made the next part even more delicious. When they called my number, I strolled up, smiled, and waited. Then the deli worker walked over with the next sandwich. Order 469, she asked. That was angry lady's number, but I nodded like it was mine. Yep, that's me, I said without hesitation. I paid for both sandwiches and walked out like a gentleman, 2 bags in hand and a little spring in my step. Now, I don't know how long she waited before realizing her order was never coming. Maybe she thought they forgot her. Maybe she yelled at the staff. Maybe she stormed out in a rage. I'll never know. But in that moment, all I could think was, sometimes karma needs a wingman. This wasn't about revenge in the big, dramatic, cinematic sense. It wasn't about getting even. It was about taking a frustrating moment and flipping it into a small, controlled win. A reminder that you, Dante, need to lose your cool or stoop to someone else's level. Sometimes all it takes is a little cleverness, a touch of pettiness, and the ability to turn a stolen parking space into a story worth telling. And spoiler alert, that extra sandwich, it ended up in the hands of someone with a story far crazier than mine. But that's part 2 of this tale. I walked into the deli and glanced over at the little red ticket machine by the door. The line was already stretching down the counter, buzzing with the lunchtime rush. I could hear angry lady still behind me, her voice raised, calling me a psycho redneck to whoever she was still blabbering to on the phone. My stomach was growling, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. I reached up, grabbed my ticket, and the next 10 behind it. Just a smooth flick of the wrist. easy enough that no one noticed. I tucked them into my jacket pocket as I turned around, giving Angry Lady a little nod as I stepped aside. She didn't notice a thing, too busy making herself out to be some poor innocent victim on the phone. The line was moving slow, like molasses. Perfect. As I shuffled down the line, I casually handed out the extra tickets to the folks who were already waiting. A little tap on the shoulder here, a quick hey, this one was on the floor. There, no one thought twice about it. Now, instead of Angry Lady being next up after me, she had at least 10 people ahead of her. 10 big, hungry obstacles. I watched her look down at her ticket when she finally pulled it, expecting her number to come soon, and then glance up at the board with a confused scowl. It was sweet, like a slow burn payoff. The best part, I didn't have to say a word, no confrontation, no big scene, just a quiet little adjustment of the universe, a tiny nudge toward justice. When my number came up, I stepped forward. The staff was hustling behind the counter, slicing bread, stacking meats, ringing orders up. The girl called out the next ticket, number mine. I walked up with a smile. Right then, another sandwich was coming off the line. The worker called out the next number. I knew that was Angry Lady's ticket. I leaned in and said, "Actually, that one's mine too." She glanced at the slip on the sandwich paper, shrugged, and handed it over. I paid for both sandwiches, tucked them into my bag, and strolled out of the deli as Angry Lady stood frozen, still staring at the number board, probably wondering why her turn never came. Maybe she thought they skipped her by mistake. Maybe she raised hell at the counter. Maybe she stomped off in a rage, calling someone else to complain about the incompetent staff. I'll never really know, but for one fleeting moment, I was completely satisfied. I didn't feel like I'd done something cruel. I felt like I'd simply rebalanced the scales. She'd been rude. She'd tried to make me out to be some dangerous lunatic in the parking lot, and now she had to stand there watching number after number tick by, wondering why her sandwich never came. The funny thing is, I wasn't even really hungry anymore. I felt weirdly light, like I'd burnt off that edge of irritation, and I was already thinking about what to do with that second sandwich. Because, here's the thing, I have this habit. A couple days a week I try to bring an extra meal when I head into the city. DC has a ridiculous number of homeless folks, and I've made it kind of a personal mission to sit down and share a lunch with someone who looks like they could use it. So while Angry Lady was probably still glaring at the deli workers, accusing them of stealing her lunch, I was heading back out to my truck with 2 sandwiches and an idea. That tiny act of pettiness, pulling those extra tickets, snagging her sandwich, turned into a much bigger story, one that I couldn't have made up if I tried. I didn't know it yet, but the guy I was about to share lunch with had a revenge story of his own, one so twisted, so absolutely nuclear, that it made my little deli deception look like child's play. Funny how things work out sometimes. You do something petty to even the score, and life hands you a front row seat to something way more insane than you could ever imagine. With both sandwiches in hand, I've stepped back out into the hot afternoon sun. The city was its usual mess of honking horns, impatient pedestrians, and sidewalks bustling with people who looked like they had somewhere way more important to be than I did. But I didn't mind. I had my little mission. See, a while back I made a promise to myself. Every now and then, when I head into DC, I bring an extra meal. There's no shortage of people out here who need one. Maybe it's a hot sub, maybe it's just a couple bottled waters and a bag of chips. Doesn't matter. I find someone sitting on a bench, on a curb, or tucked in the shade somewhere with a sign asking for change, and I offer them lunch. I don't do it to feel better about myself, and I don't do it expecting some moral payback from the universe. I do it because, well, life's hard enough. If I've got something to give, I'm gonna give it. I spotted him on the next block, sitting on a bench just past a broken bus stop sign. He had a little cardboard scrap propped against his knees. Anything helps. God bless. He looked tired, worn out in that way that no amount of sleep can fix. I walked up slow, holding the 2 sandwiches and a couple bottles of water. He looked up as I approached, eyes wary at first. "Hey man," I said. "You hungry?" He nodded immediately. "Yeah." I handed him the sandwich and a bottle of water, then sat down beside him on the bench. "I got one for me too," I said. "Figured we could eat together if that's cool." He let out this half chuckle, half sigh, like he couldn't remember the last time someone had just sat down next to him like a normal human being. We unwrapped the sandwiches in silence for a second. Then he looked over and asked, "So what's with the second sub?" I grinned. "Funny you should ask. I actually bought this out of spite." He raised an eyebrow, amused. "Out of spite." So I told him the whole story of the parking lot, the lady in the Fiat, how she flipped me off, how I yanked the ticket numbers and made her wait longer, how I bought her sandwich and walked out without looking back. He started laughing halfway through. It was rough and raw, but it was real. The kind of laugh that comes from someone who doesn't get many reasons to find things funny anymore. "Man," he said between bites, "that is cold, but damn, I can't even be mad at you. That's some real cosmic justice shit right there." I shrugged, chewing, I guess. Petty revenge, random kindness. Maybe they're two sides of the same coin. Or maybe I'm just an asshole with a soft spot for free sandwiches. He shook his head, still grinning. "Nah, you did all right. A lot of people wouldn't have done anything, let alone sit down and share it." We ate in silence after that. Just two guys on a bench in a city that kept moving no matter what happened to the people in it. As I sat there, I realized how weirdly satisfying the day had become. A stupid stolen parking spot turned into a meal shared with a stranger. A petty grudge turned into something almost good. I had no idea that the guy next to me had a revenge story of his own, one that made my deli ticket stunt look like kindergarten stuff. But I'd find that out soon enough. He took a sip of water, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and leaned back on the bench like he was about to settle in for a long story. His eyes, hollow and tired a few minutes ago, seemed to sharpen as he spoke, like the words were waking up something buried in him. "Back in the late 90s, he began, I was an investment banker. Young, stupid, and making more money than I knew what to do with. Bonuses, stock options, expense accounts, the works. I got married fast, bought a house even faster, and thought I was untouchable." He smirked, shaking his head. "Turns out I was also a horny bastard. Couldn't keep it in my pants. Hookers, high-end escorts, girls I met in bars. It started as a thrill, quick disposable, but it wasn't enough. So I got myself a sugar baby, rented her a little apartment in the city. She was 22, fresh out of college, and willing to do whatever I wanted as long as the money kept coming. And I kept the money flowing. Thousands every month. Sex, company, my own little escape." He paused, staring out at the street like he could still see those years flashing by. "My wife wanted kids. I didn't. Want to ruin my little double life with diapers and crying babies and some permanent tie to her. So I got a vasectomy. Secretly, I told her I was going to San Francisco on business. But really, I got the snip and spent a few days at my sugar baby's place recovering." "Yeah," he said, bitter smile creeping back. "But here's where karma starts to roll in. My urologist's office called the house to check in a few days later. Routine post-op call, they said. Only they left a message with my wife. She played dumb. Told them I was still out of town, but started piecing things together. My business trip didn't line up with my calendar. The doctor's call didn't match anything I'd told her." He let out a ragged breath. "But she didn't blow up at me right away. No screaming, no confrontation. She waited. She started acting different, more affectionate, more willing to try new things in bed. Started talking about threesomes, experimenting, partying. I thought I'd won the lottery finally. We were on the same page. She suggested we start going out more. Said she wanted to live a little. It was like she'd found this wild side I'd always dreamed of." His eyes narrowed. I didn't know it then, but she was gathering proof. While I was busy basking in this new, kinky honeymoon, she was talking to my sugar baby behind my back, following the money trail, reading my texts while I slept off coke binges, building her own little case file. He paused again, taking another long drink. But me, I was too high, too cocky, too damn dumb to notice. She started buying coke for us, wanting to stay up all night, do lines off each other before we fucked. I thought she was addicted to me, addicted to the thrill. In reality, she was getting me hooked, making sure my habit grew. I had to drop the sugar baby because my blow budget was getting insane. But that didn't matter. I had my wife now, my partner in crime, or so I thought. He gave a bitter laugh. She fed every fantasy I had, whispered about her boss's wife, how hot she was, how she wanted to try her out. She'd bring it up when we fucked, get me all worked up, make me obsessed with this woman I barely knew. That Christmas, the company party, my wife told me she'd de-talk to the boss's wife in the bathroom and that she was down to play. That the next time she went to the bathroom I should follow her in and get started. He looked at me, and his voice dropped. So I did, and it was a fucking trap. The boss's wife had no idea what I was doing. She screamed, slapped me. The whole party froze. I got fired the next day, blacklisted from every big firm in the city. Word traveled fast. My wife, meanwhile, filed for divorce, took the house, and told every mutual friend I was a cokehead creep who sexually harassed my boss's wife at the office party. "Shit," I whispered. "She set you up." "Set me up," he said, nodding slowly. "She spent months turning me into a coked-out puppet, fed every sick fantasy I had, made sure I'd be the one to blow it all up in front of everyone, and then she walked away clean, with everything I'd built." He tapped the empty sandwich wrapper. That was the beginning of the end. Couldn't find work, couldn't shake the habit, blew through every dime I had left. Eventually, the coke dried up, the friends disappeared, and I was out here on the bench, blowing dudes for enough to keep from starving or freezing. He chuckled to sound hollow. Funny how life works, huh? One day you're making six figures and getting your dick sucked by 20-year-olds, and next day you're begging for change and hoping someone buys you a sandwich. I didn't know what to say. All I could do was nod, thinking about how that tiny act of pettiness, buying an extra sandwich to screw over angry lady, had landed me in front of this man with a story that sounded like a goddamn movie. He leaned back again, eyes half closed, like he'd just unloaded something heavy that he'd been carrying around for years. And I just sat there, chewing the last bite of my sub, wondering how much darker his story would get. He let out a shaky breath and continued, like he was picking up steam now that he'd started. So, right after that call from the doctor's office when my wife knew I'd had a vasectomy, but I had no idea she knew, she just shifted. She started dressing sexier and drinking more, getting touchy in public. She whispered in my ear about things we'd never done, never even talked about. It was like she'd deflipped some switch and become the woman I'd always fantasized about. I thought I'd hit the jackpot. He rubbed his face with a dirty hand. We'd stay out until dawn, club hopping, drinking, doing lines in bathroom stalls. She'd giggle about how much fun we were having, how she never wanted to go back to being boring suburban parents. When I brought up the idea of having kids again, she'd shrug and say maybe later, or maybe we should just enjoy ourselves first. I had no idea that was part of her trap. She was the one who first bought coke for the house, a little baggie on the nightstand one morning. Bright and early after a long night of drinking, she told me we should try something new and maybe it de-spice things up even more. And it did. The sex was wild. I was already dabbling, but with her pushing it, it became normal, expected. Soon, we were blowing through thousands a month just on partying, hosting after-hours parties at our place, inviting friends, strangers, people we barely knew. My sugar baby started complaining about not seeing me enough, wanting more money. I was bleeding cash, drowning in blow, but couldn't say no to my wife, the party, the fantasy life she was giving me. Eventually I told the sugar baby to get lost. I just couldn't afford her in the habit. It felt like a sacrifice at the time, but also like an investment in what I thought was my perfect future with my wife. He let out a short laugh that sounded more like a cough. I told myself I was lucky, that I had the coolest wife ever, that she was my ride or die, my partner in crime, that we'd grow old together snorting coke off crystal trays and fucking strangers. I didn't realize she was studying me, collecting proof, slowly tightening the noose. He picked at the hole in his jeans, eyes distant. Every time I thought maybe we were spending too much, she'd be there with some new suggestion. Maybe we try hosting bigger parties, maybe we try harder drugs, maybe we hit this club or that club where the real players go. I'd blow half my bonus on weekends. I could barely remember. She even started suggesting we get friendly with my boss and his wife, told me she was hot and flirty, teased me with ideas of group sex and swapping. Whenever I hesitated, she'd kiss me, slip me another line, remind me how much fun life was now that we were free. I couldn't see what was coming. In my head, I kept telling myself I had everything under control. I was this Wolf on Wall Street type, just living the life guys dreamed about in secret. Meanwhile, my credit cards were maxing out. My checking account was empty 3 days after payday. She'd built me up into this addicted, broke, needy mess, and I still thought I was winning. He shook his head slowly. I was too high to notice the details. The calls she took outside, the private chats with people I didn't know, the fact that the drugs always showed up from her contacts. She never got too deep herself. She partied with me, sure, but she was sharp, careful, never sloppy like I was. And the whole time, she was plotting. I thought I had the coolest wife in the world. In reality, I had a ticking time bomb sharing my bed, whispering fantasies in my ear that would turn into nightmares I couldn't wake up from. He paused, eyes meeting mine with a hollow look. That's the thing about addiction. You think you're in control right up until you're out on the street, trading whatever you've got left for the next hit. I handed her the matches and the gasoline. I practically built the bonfire for her. He went quiet again, staring off into the busy street like he was seeing ghosts in the traffic. And it all led up to that Christmas party. That was when the trap snapped shut. He paused for a moment, staring at the half-empty bottle of water like it held the rest of his story. Then he exhaled, like he was letting out a ghost he'd been holding for years. Christmas, he said, almost spitting the word out. Man, I should have seen it coming. But I didn't. She played me like a fucking fiddle, right up until the very end. He glanced at me, a bitter smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. So here's how it went down. December rolls around. The company party's coming up. Big event every year. They rent out a hotel ballroom, fully catered, free booze flowing like water, everyone dressed to the nines. It's where half the office scandals happen. Normally I hated that shit schmoozing with bosses, pretending to care about other people's kids, but that year, I was riding high. My wife had been filling my head for months about the boss's wife. How hot she was, how wild she supposedly was under the surface, teasing me that maybe, just maybe, we could get her into bed. She said the boss was a sleaze too, always looking at her tits, so why not use it to our advantage? He shook his head. Man, I was so blind I bought it all. Hook, line, sinker. My wife said the boss's wife was interested, that she'd been flirting at previous parties, that she was probably just waiting for a signal. I was already coked out half the time by then, burning through paychecks like napkins at a barbecue. I convinced myself this was it. The perfect fantasy. The forbidden fruit. Everything I'd ever wanted. Gift trapped under the goddamn Christmas tree. The guy's voice got lower, almost conspiratorial. So the night of the party comes. My wife looks like a fucking goddess, her dress so tight it could have been painted on. Heels that made her legs go forever. She kept my glass full, kept my nose full too, dragging me into the bathroom between drinks to do bumps, whispering about the boss's wife the whole time, telling me she wanted to watch me fuck her, that she wanted to taste her after I did. I mean, shit, what man wouldn't fall for that? He let out a dark laugh. Meanwhile, she was keeping me at just the right level of high, buzzed enough to believe every word, but not so gone that I couldn't still function. And then, right around midnight, she nudged me and said it was time. The boss's wife had just gone into the ladies' room. Go, she whispered. She wants you. She even kissed me, shoved me toward the bathroom door. He swallowed hard, jaw tightening, so I followed. Barely knocked, just pushed the door open. Boss's wife was fixing her hair in the mirror, startled as hell when I walked in. I was so sure of myself, I didn't even notice her confusion. I just blurted out the filthiest shit you can imagine. Told her how I couldn't wait to taste what her husband left behind. Reached for her dress like some goddamn creep. She screamed, loud enough that it stopped the music in the ballroom. People came running, my wife among them, all shocked faces and hands over mouths. Boss's wife slapped me so hard I saw stars. Then the security guys grabbed me, dragged me out in front of the entire office. I can still hear the silence in that room, broken only by people whispering and my wife crying crocodile tears into the boss's shoulder. Next day I was fired, blacklisted in the industry. No one would touch me. Word spreads fast in those circles. One call from my boss and I was radioactive. My wife filed for divorce the same week, took the house, the cars, cleaned out the accounts before I could blink. She showed everyone the receipts. My coke habit, the party scene, the hookers, spun it all into this story of an unhinged sex addict husband. She'd have been desperately trying to help. Hell, maybe she even believed some of it. I spiraled. No job, no friends, no money. Sold everything I had left for drugs. In the end, I was living in my car, until that got repossessed too. And she married some older lawyer 6 months later, last I heard, probably living in the suburbs with her new kids and a white picket fence. He looked at me then, eyes red and watery. She built me up, tore me down, and made sure I was the one who pulled the pin on the grenade. The whole time I thought she was my ride or die. Turns out, she was just waiting to shove me off the cliff. He went quiet, staring into the distance like he was seeing ghosts. There wasn't anything to say. Finally, he let out a sigh anyway. That's my Christmas story. Hope yours is better. We sat in silence, the hum of the city all around us, as the weight of his past hung between us like a ghost refusing to leave. He let out a long breath, eyes staring at the ground like he was watching everything crumble all over again. After that night, man, it was like the lights went out. I tried to call people I thought were friends, the ones who partied with us, the ones who used to beg for invites or after-hours scenes. Nothing. Radio silence. No one would answer. No one would return a call. I was poisoned. Word got around quick in that industry. You burn your boss at a Christmas party, you're untouchable. I thought maybe I could apologize, spin some damage control. Maybe someone would listen. But all I heard was doors slamming shut. Even the other guys who did blow with me wouldn't pick up the phone. They were all terrified they'd get dragged down with me. Money went fast. I didn't realize how deep in debt I already was. My wife had set things up so most accounts were joint, and she cleaned them out before the ink was even dry on the divorce papers. I tried to hire a lawyer but couldn't afford the retainer. Everything I'd worked for, everything I thought I owned, it was all gone before I even knew what was happening. And that's when the habit got worse. Coke was the only thing that dulled the panic. the screaming in my head at 3 in the morning. Some nights I thought about just ending it, but I was too scared or maybe too weak. I sold everything. Watches, suits, electronics, even the wedding ring I'd kept in the back of a drawer. The car went next. I started crashing on couches of guys I barely knew. Old party buddies, people who'd let me stay a night or two if I had blow to share. It didn't last. Nobody wants a broke cokehead hanging around for long. I burned every bridge. Pretty soon I was out on the street sleeping behind dumpsters, begging for change to scrape up enough for the next hit. I still saw her face sometimes, on a billboard, on a bus ad, in the smile of a passing stranger, and it would hit me all over again. Shown her exactly where to aim, and then acted surprised when she pulled the trigger. I kept telling myself I'd get it together, that I'd clean up, get a job, get back in the game. But it never happened. A few times I scraped together enough to get clean for a week, but the weight of everything just crushed me. The shame, the emptiness. I started doing other shit, just to get by. Blowjobs in alleyways, shoplifting from corner stores, whatever it took. It's disgusting. Yeah. But when you're hungry and shaking, your morals get flexible real fast. Funny thing is, I don't even know how many years it's been since then. It's all a blur of winter nights, piss-soaked blankets, the taste of cheap liquor washing down lines of garbage below. People would drop change in my cup sometimes and look away, like they were scared I'd crawl out and grab them, like I wasn't even human anymore. And maybe I wasn't. Maybe I'm still not. But you know what? I can't even be mad at her. Not really. I gave her everything she needed to destroy me. I was too stupid, too greedy, too sure I was untouchable. She played me like a fucking piano, and I let her. I can't blame her for being smarter than me. Now I sit here, hoping for a sandwich, maybe a little cash so I can find a place to sleep or I one T get stabbed. That's my world now. That's what's left. He looked at me, eyes dull again. So that's it. The rise and fall, all in less than a decade. Investment banker to homeless crap. And you know the really fucked up part? Part of me still misses it, the rush, the highs, the feeling like I was somebody. I didn't say anything for a long time. What do you say to that? He'd laid his entire life out like a corpse on a slab, still twitching from old wounds. Finally, he shrugged and crumpled the sandwich wrapper in his hands. Anyway, thanks for the food, man. Means more than you know. I nodded, the weight of his story heavy in my chest. The sandwich in my hand felt cold, forgotten, and I thought about how life can flip on you, just like that. How the dumbest choices, the tiniest blind spots, can destroy everything you think you've built, and how sometimes the only thing you can do is sit on a bench with someone who has lost it all, and listen. After we finished eating, we just sat there a while, watching the swirl of traffic and tourists and workers rushing back from their lunch breaks. Part of me was still chewing on his story, turning it over in my head like a rock I couldn't put down. It was dark, sure, sad, tragic, all of that. But there was something almost absurd about it, like he'd been living in a bad soap opera, and someone kept turning the dial up to 11 just to see what he'd do. I cracked a half smile and said, "Man, all that, and you still ended up with a free sandwich from some asshole in a truck." He snorted a short laugh that came out rough but genuine. Yeah, he said, "Guess karma really does work in mysterious ways." And you know, that was the thing. Even in the middle of all that darkness, there was this weird sliver of humor. Life has a way of tripping us up, tossing us into the mud, and then giving us a little wink from the corner like, "Yeah, it sucks. But isn't it kind of funny how you ended up here?" I told him about how I'd swiped the deli tickets out of pure pettiness, about how it felt like karma had immediately paid me back by dropping his insane story in my lap. He just nodded along, eyes twinkling a little like he was remembering the person he used to be. We joked about me getting karma points and him getting a free meal, and for a few minutes, it almost felt normal to guys eating lunch, swapping dumb stories. In the end, that's what stuck with me. How quickly the world can shift from a silly parking lot feud to a real moment of connection. How one petty little trick turned into a real conversation with a man who'd lost everything, and still had the guts to laugh about it. It made me realize, maybe revenge is just the universe's way of reminding us we're all in this mess together, one sandwich at a time. Sometimes revenge doesn't just serve cold, it brings a whole damn buffet. Whether it's a stolen sandwich or a life unraveled by a vengeful spouse, every story has a twist. So next time someone cuts you off or flips you off, remember you never know where a little pettiness might lead. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this wild ride, smash that like button, subscribe for more stories, and remember, kindness and karma go hand in hand, even if it starts with a deli ticket.